So this is a follow-up to the tabletop demonstration exercise that we did in the main session a short time ago. And I'm Peter Davies, Sherri Goodman from the Wilson Center, and our guest, Gail Schubert.
Yeah.
And we're here just to dig a little deeper into some of the comments that were made and questions that came up. And so the first question I just want to ask is a very general one of, if you think about the conversations that we had around that table and comments that you made, and about the scenario in general, what are a couple takeaways that you have from that experience?
Well, first, I'd like to say that I thought the conversation was really, really helpful, and that there really needs to be more of them. And in particular, because you may know that on the Russian side, on the Chukotka side, the Russians recently moved floating nuclear power plant over to the Chukotka side to provide power to their villages. And it's something that the villages in my region on the US side are concerned about. And you know, until you really start to have discussions like that and get the feedback and input, I think that it really doesn't rise to the level of conversation and discussion that it should. The discussion that we had today, I think, was particularly helpful because we had many experts from many different agencies and areas, and they raised some items of discussion that I hadn't really thought about, because you know, you become so focused in terms of what you're looking at that it was just really helpful to have the broader discussion and the really incredible level of experience and professionals that were present.
Sherri.
Well, Gail, thank you for your leadership and your work with the Bering Straits Regional Corporation. And as a leader from the region, what are the things you think we need to be doing today to prepare for a potential nuclear shipping or other type of accident that could occur in the future?
I think that one thing that would really be helpful, when you go to the villages, I think you'll find that there are many, many, many people that are willing to help if there's an incident in the strait. The problem is that people don't really have any training and experience. So, they wouldn't know whether something that they're doing is the right thing to do or the wrong thing to do. And so I think that if the US or some other agency could provide some funding that maybe we can match to a degree to go out to the villages and train them in terms of what kind of response they should give and what kinds of things that they shouldn't do, it would be really helpful, because we're the ones who live out there. So if anything happens, we're the ones that are going to be there first.
Thank you.
Great. And I'd like to piggyback on that, because that ties into the question that I was going to ask as well. One of the comments that you made in the panel was you referenced the very high percentage of former servicemen and servicewomen who are in your community. And there's clearly sort of an experience base there. And the question I have is are there currently, or could there be, roles, and maybe even sort of leadership roles in the emergency response kind of setting for those people who would have a direct experience already to build on?
Absolutely. I really believe that if called upon, retired servicemen and women would be willing to step forward. I invited General Bussier to visit Yunlakleet about a couple of weeks ago. And one of the reasons that he's the JBER commander. Sorry, I should have mentioned that earlier. But there was a really good turnout at the village level. And there were a lot of them were former Vietnam veterans. And they came to talk to him about the concern that they have about being prepared if there is anything that happens in the Bering Strait, and what the U.S. is prepared to do to ensure that our shores are protected, our interests are protected, that our subsistence food sources are protected. And I thought it was a really useful conversation. So with the turnout that we had there, I know for a fact that if called upon, those men, were basically almost all men, would be more than willing to step forward again to help.
Okay, I guess
We're good?
we're good, unless there are any other thoughts that you want to share.
Just that I really appreciate being asked to sit on the panel. I really honestly think that it was a very helpful and useful discussion. And I think that if a discussion like this were had in Alaska, you would find a really great turnout for it. There were a lot of Alaskans in the audience because it's an important issue for us. And I know that if it were held in Alaska, that there would be a really great turnout.
Well, we look forward to the opportunity to do this with you and other Alaskans in Alaska.
Thank you. I'd be more than happy to participate. And thanks a lot for inviting me to participate. I appreciate it very much. Thanks.
Thank you, Gail.
More time, we appreciate
you.
that too. Okay, with that, we conclude.
Brianna.